Welcome, fellow beekeepers. This is Jamie Walters, OSBA's Maumee Valley Director and News Editor. I'm pleased to announce OSBA's new live webinar training series. Live sessions are recorded on the second and fourth Sunday of each month, 7 p.m. through Zoom conference call. You're welcome to attend by making a reservation on OSBA's website at www.ohiostatebeekeepers.org. Go to the events page and scroll down to the event you would like to attend. Confirm your RSVP by filling out the registration form with your city, state, name, and email address. Approximately 2 hours before the beginning of Sunday's webinar, an active Zoom link will be sent to your email address. Each training session will be recorded and posted on the following Sunday on OSBA's new YouTube channel. You can find it at Ohio State Beekeepers Association. You're welcome to subscribe and be sure to click the bell to be alerted each time we upload a new video. Each month's speakers and presentation will be posted on the Facebook page, by direct email to registered and paid members, and our website at ohiostatebeekeepers.org. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at editor@ohiostatebeekeepers.org. And now on to our previous recorded webinar. We're going to turn it over to Barb, and I'm pleased to announce that we have Barb Bloetscher tonight from ODA. She is the state apiary inspector and my boss because I'm a county inspector for Defiance County. And this is a way to, this turned around, and I'm going to say this for my own, this is my own instance. When we started doing alcohol wash instead of powdered sugar and inspecting my bees every month, it's like going to the doctor's office. When you inspect your bees monthly, you don't have to hit them with extra chemicals, and you can do all these things that Barb's going to talk about, and you can keep healthier bees. I went from a 50% loss every year to less than 10%. And this is about being accurate, having scientific information, and doing these steps. So, Miss Barb, you're welcome to take it away.
Well, thank you, Jamie. After that, I think we can just go home. No, I'm very glad to have a chance to do this. This is pretty new to me, so thank you, Jamie, for all your patience to get this set up and for helping me for the last 3 weeks. I also wanted to thank and recognize everybody who has been who has served or fought in the wars in the past or is still serving today to keep us free. So I just want to recognize them. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about Ohio Department of Agriculture's Apiary program. It has a very rich history. And then I'm going to move into Varroa Mites, monitoring and control. And I can't see the chat, but if you need something, please let me know. So with that, we're going to jump into the apiary program. So the apiary program actually goes back to 1904. I found digging around online. I'm getting ahead of myself, but they first started writing the laws back in the 1908. Back in that era. They've been updating them through the years. We just updated the rules a few years ago. And I had the links here at the bottom of the screen if you wanted to check on them. They hired the first state apiarist in 1934. So this, I found this, Gordon Rudloff was the chief apiarist about a decade before me. And he kept really good track of all the old records, and he dug through the old data and found that from 1923 to 1930, over 2/3 of the colonies in Ohio were dead or dying from American foulbrood. And because it was not just Ohio, it was most of the states on the eastern side where beekeeping was very prominent business. So they had to initiate some kind of a program to inspect these colonies and keep keep the apiaries from dying, because obviously with no healthy colonies, you don't have good pollination, and our crop yield goes down. So they initiated the apiary program and started appointing county inspectors in 1930. And you can see when they first started doing inspections in 1930, about 6 or 14% of all the colonies had American foulbrood. Within 10 years, by 1940, they had it down to 3%, and it's been going down since then. It's less than a 0.1% now of all the colonies in Ohio. So that's why they initiated the program to begin with, was to control American foulbrood. And they've also added through the years other serious pests and diseases. So the whole point of the program is to maintain healthy colonies so that we have good pollination. So I kind of outlined the critical duties of the apiary program. And you can see registration is still very important. It's slowly increased since I started in 2009, from about 5,000 up to 5,600, up to 9,000 now in 2019. So my job, my responsibilities is one, to train the apiaries, train our county inspectors to find and be able to detect serious pests and diseases such as the Varroa Mite and, American foulbrood, controlling these pests and keeping them from spreading to other colonies. That includes finding Africanized honeybees and stopping them from causing any damage. Sorry. Inspecting beekeeping business and queen operations, which I'm going to talk more about. And then inspecting the colonies and the nukes packages that come in and out of Ohio. So we inspect these colonies that are leaving Ohio as well as the ones that are coming into Ohio. All these are done to maintain healthy beekeeping business here in Ohio. So this is some old data that Ed Newman, one of our inspectors, dug up, and he was going back to 1960 and showing the change in the colonies versus the apiaries. So back in the 60s, of course, we had a lot more agriculture and a lot more open areas. We had a very high number of colonies per apiary. So as we become more urbanized, and other reasons too, but the number of colonies has actually gone way down, whereas the number of apiaries has more or less remained constant. They are kind of going up a little bit, but I don't expect us to ever go back up to where we are now. So we have, okay. My screen stopped advancing. So this is kind of the same data in a list form. So we had about 117,000 colonies back in 1940. Come around 1986, and you know what happened in 1986? That's when the Varroa Mite and both in the Trachea mite too really took a toll on our colonies in Ohio and other states as well. So the number of colonies dropped way back down. They're slowly coming back up again. The number of apiaries is increasing because we have more beekeepers in town. We have a lot of urban beekeepers. So we have a lot of apiaries, but only a few colonies per yard because, we have 5 hives in our backyard. We can't have 20, 30 colonies. So these dynamics have changed quite a bit. So now beekeeping is very urban, and yes, we still need every single one of those colonies, and we need to make sure that they're healthy so we don't have people getting stung, and we still have good pollination in town as well as out in the country. So Jared Schaefer with the ODA did this last year. It's kind of confusing to look at the darker the color, the more apiaries there are. For instance, if you look up in northeast Ohio, up in Elyria and Summit County, up in there, there's a lot of apiaries up there, and it actually kind of follows 71 coming across Ohio. Lots and lots of apiaries, but not too many colonies. If you go out to the northwest, there's fewer colonies out there, but I mean fewer apiaries out there, but lots of colonies, because this is where all of our big commercial operations are out there, where it's flat and there's lots of agriculture. So we're lots of colonies and fewer apiaries, because each apiary has more colonies, if that makes sense. So it's just kind of interesting to see how this dynamic changes. So just to summarize this, our program, the whole point of our apiary program is to ensure healthy bee colonies, so we have a growing and strong beekeeping industry here in Ohio. And just to demonstrate that, this is the Bee-Informed Partnership survey that beekeepers take based on last year's data. And it actually shows that we've gotten a little better. We have about a 29–30% loss in Ohio over the winter versus the more red states or orange states like Iowa and Illinois and out in Nevada. So we've actually done better this last year as far as having improved overwintering. That just goes to show that the importance of teaching, like we're doing now, all the club activities that are helping to teach to promote healthy beekeeping. And I think that's why our beekeeping survival has improved, is because the clubs are doing more to teach and to help new beekeepers get better survival. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the inspection program itself and what the inspectors do. And then we're going to move on to some of the other things that we do within the apiary program, and talk about the Varroa Mites. So we did change a couple rules years ago, and one of which was the definition of a nuke, because people were being cheated every year here in Ohio, buying something that was nowhere near, definitely not a nuke. So by definition, a nuke or a nucleus colony should have a queen in all stages of her progeny in that colony, and it should have enough bees in different life stages for that colony to be self-sustaining. So you want to check those nukes that you purchased before you leave the cellar. Make sure that those bees are strong. Make sure that the queen is loose and walking around in there. If she's in a cage, all they did was buy a queen from somewhere and stick her in there, and she may not survive when she is released, or she may not be any good. So we want good, strong, overwintered colonies. We want the comb to be consistent, all wax or all plastic or whatever, and we don't want combs like this that have parallel comb. We want those combs in that colony to be full and healthy and ready to take off. So I wanted to change gears a little bit and talk about our queen inspection program, which has changed quite a bit even this year. It's constantly evolving, basically to match the needs of our queen breeders. We have a very strong and growing beekeeping business in Ohio and queen breeding program. We like to recommend that beekeepers buy Ohio queens and Ohio bees. They're stronger. They have become accustomed to our winters, and the fact that most of them have survived the winter, they have become acclimated to Ohio's conditions. So we changed it a little bit this last year, just to accommodate the growing number of queen producers we have. We still insist, this is based on a law, that all queen breeding companies have their businesses inspected every year. That is mainly to protect the beekeepers, to make sure that people aren't selling a sick queen or a sick nukes. So we do like to have those colonies inspected. If this year, especially with the COVID virus, if an apiary was certified last year, their certification is automatically renewed for 2020. The inspector will still come out sometime this season to inspect it. It's not going to expire on May 31st. It's going to be good for the entire year, and that should help a lot of you queen breeders out there not have to worry about being inspected by May 31st. New certificates, we're still going to try to get them done by June 1st. However, again, because of the COVID virus, we are going ahead and issuing these. So the inspectors will try to get out as soon as they can, but we didn't think it was fair for queen breeders to wait for us because of this virus. So just buyer beware. You want to make sure that you're getting good, strong products, but we don't want to be holding these queen breeders back. So the queen breeder should get a certificate that looks like this on the right. It has a current date and queen certificate on our paper. They may just have an inspection form that's been checked that they're good for a queen certificate. And you can notice our records, we've gone up to over 650 queen requests for this year. So this is very exciting that we have so many people trying to raise healthy queens in Ohio. So I want to talk about the inspectors themselves because they are so important to the whole program. I'm just one person. I can't possibly get around to the entire state. And these inspectors are amazing that they will put in long days, long hours. They see all kinds of things out there doing these inspections. And just like Jamie or Mike Horst that you've talked about, they put in their 300% doing these inspections. So they are appointed and paid by the county. Each county has their own program, their own system. Some are paid different ways, some are not paid very well. But the counties kind of run those types of programs. So because of that, the inspectors tend to be pretty limited on their budget and their time. So they can't be running back and forth. They usually try to set a route and they'll do, one township at a time and kind of work themselves across the county. So we just ask that you be patient. We can't really set schedules for several reasons. Sometimes it's just hard to find the apiaries. I can drive back and forth up and down the road. Sometimes the directions on the form will say, past the barn. Well, out in the country, there's 20 barns on the same road. So it's kind of hard to find the apiaries at times. Sometimes beekeepers will register that they have 2 hives, and we get there and they have 20 hives. So all of a sudden, 15 minutes is going to turn into a couple hours worth of inspections. We do spend a lot of time answering questions, trying to fix things for some of the beekeepers. New beekeepers have a lot of questions. So we tend to spend more time with the newer beekeepers trying to help them be successful and diagnosing problems. And if we see something, we don't know what's going on, we're going to keep digging until we figure out what's going on. So yeah, we just ask that you be patient with us. So the inspection season runs from April 1st until the end of October. They do have quite a bit of paperwork that they have to do, keeping track of their miles and their hours and the number of apiaries and colonies that they inspect. We have an apiary inspection manual that we update every year, and that kind of helps the inspectors work through any questions that they have. New bee inspectors tend to call their beekeepers, just to let them know that there's going to be a new person there. Some of the older inspectors, they've been there several years. They may or may not call. Again, it's very hard for us to schedule. So we may say we'll be there, this week or, this particular day, but we can't really set up times. So every inspector is different. Most of them have a full-time job, so they're doing inspections on the weekends. So regardless, so some counties don't have a county inspector, and those are the ones that I try to hit. They are eyes and ears of the program, and they are the number one line of defense because they're out there seeing things. Actually, county inspectors have identified new pests and diseases in Ohio. So they're very important. They keep track of what's going on and let me know what's going on. So yeah, hats off or veils off, I guess, to the county inspectors. So kind of moving into the second part of my talk. This is an example going into the woods. I guess I missed a slide, but the brood was dying. The brood is being chewed out. The pupae are being chewed out. There were dead pupa on the bottom board that were being kicked out of the hive. We got there. The colonies weren't in very good shape. The boxes weren't in very good shape. All those dead pupa being kicked out of the colony, and we started trying to determine what's going on with these colonies and why are all these pupa being chewed out and kicked out of the hive. Well, it didn't take long for us to start pulling frames out, and all these small hive beetles came running out and were all over the frames, all over the boxes themselves. You can kind of see in this picture how the comb has started to get kind of wet and sunken. And you look a little closer and you start counting all the small hive beetles that are crawling out of these cells. So all these bee larvae, so the small hive beetles lay their eggs in the cells as close to the bee larvae as possible. And those the beetle larvae start eating the wax and the royal jelly and the comb, pollen, even the immature bee. And as they're chewing and as the beetles are crawling around, they leave a yeast behind that causes this comb to start to melt. It starts to ferment. So all this bee brood is basically dying and starting to ferment. And you wonder, so where's all the bees? Been in this, last picture. We took these frames out and there are no bees on these frames. So what happened is we started looking at these colonies, and there are several like this. We did an alcohol wash. 45 mites per 300 bees. We don't want more than 3 mites per 100 bees. So these colonies the colonies were dying because of the Varroa Mites. And yes, the small hive beetles were taking these colonies out, but because there's such a high level of Varroa Mites, the bee larvae were not developing well. They didn't have enough bees to cover these frames. And when you don't have enough bees covering the frames, they can't defend themselves from the small hive beetle. This is a link below showing a quick way of doing an alcohol wash to check your mite level. These numbers are way too high, as Jamie was saying earlier. You need to keep monitoring your mite level every month to keep the mite levels from getting that high. So we really can't blame the small hive beetles for taking our hives out. It's usually because the colony is sick or stressed for some other reason. And this is the #1 reason that we lose bees in Ohio as well as other states, the Varroa destructor. And you can see this wing here is damaged. There's a mite on her back. a very destructive little pest. And they can kill your colonies in several different ways. So this is bee comb up here. Bee brood.
Beetle.
Or tick.
Do you have a question? Okay,
I took
sorry.
care of it. Open mic.
Okay. You can see all the Varroa mites on these developing bee brood. That's way too high. They're chewing on the developing brood as it's as they're trying to go through the metamorphosis. This is kind of a wordy slide, but I threw it in there just because Dr. Sammy Ramsey, who most of you know by now, he's been studying the effect of these mites on the brood and the fact that they're chewing on the fat bodies of the bees. And these fat bodies determine all these different habits within the bee. So the nutrient storage, fat body controls that. Metamorphosis of fat body controls that. Osmoregulation, which is water loss. So if all these different things are affected or damaged, then those developing honeybees are not going to survive, or they're not going to emerge as healthy bees. So if they're not healthy, they're not going to live long, and can lose up to 3 weeks of their life if they're damaged by Varroa mites. So this is a shot showing the chelicerae of the Varroa mite. This is a electron photograph. And again, this is another cross section. So this is kind of weird. This is the honeybee. And you can see its legs. This is one of the segments on the back of the bee. And this is a Varroa mite that has stuck itself, wedged herself down in those cells. So you can see that they're crawling in there. They actually chew a hole in the bee, and they're chewing through the tissue of the bee to get into the fat bodies and feed on the bees. So this is the kind of damage that they're doing. And I'm showing you this to make you really, really mad at Varroa mites. So this is the male and female Varroa mite. The males, of course, stay in the cell. This is kind of just a diagram showing how these mites are developing with the bee. So the queen bee, lays an egg. There's a mite on this nurse bee here. It crawls in the cell along with the bee larva. Just as the bee larva is capped over and it's about ready to pupate, these mites start to become active. So the mother mite, for lack of a better term, she's down in this royal jelly down here with the pupa. Once it's capped over, she crawls up. She starts chewing on the pupa of the bee. Then she starts laying eggs. So I have a picture of this coming up before I get ahead of myself and screw up. So she crawls into the cell and hides in that larval jelly. She lays several eggs. The first one is a male egg. Then every 30 hours after that, she lays another egg. So she'll lay 3 or 4 more eggs after that. So she chews a hole in that bee pupa, because when the mites, hatch, they're not able to their mouth parts are soft. They're not able to do that. And she starts pooping on the cell walls for these mites to climb on to get a better hold onto the bee pupa. So drone bees are preferred over the females just because you have a few more mites that can survive. These mites are chewing on the bee pupa. There could be multiple mother mites in there, in which case they're going to be, male mites are going to be breeding with the other female mites. But you can have multiple, as those earlier pictures showed, multiple mites in those cells, multiple eggs hatching, and about every 6 days, you're going to have another mite ready to emerge on that bee. So going from an egg to an adult mite, it takes 6 days. So if you think about that, every 3 weeks, the population of mites is going to triple, because you're going to have, 2 to 3 mites at least emerge emerge on the bee. Every 6 days, there's another 3 to 4 mites that are going to emerge. So I'm not saying that quite right. Basically, you have more mites emerging with that adult bee. Every 6 days, you've got another adult mite ready to come out on that adult bee. So when that capped pupa is ready to be a full-grown bee, the adult bee emerges, and these mites will crawl out on that adult bee. Easy for me to say. So this is a close-up that another inspector sent to me. So all this white, this is all fecal matter of the Varroa mite. So this is probably an undeveloped female mite here. There's another mite down here, and more mites down here. This is all the fecal matter of the mite. So another way that you can be a detective to determine, why your colonies died, is you start looking in the brood cell and you look for that white fecal matter. So it's going to look very different from us American flower brood scales. This is something you're going to see a lot in a colony that has high mite populations. And this graph was drawn by Randy Oliver, who has scientificbeekeeping.org. And it's kind of complicated as well, but he's showing how the bee population develops along with the mite population. So our bee population actually peaks around July. Then after that, especially if we have a drought, the queen is going to slow down her egg laying. Our bee population is going to continue to, decline as the fall continues. At the same time our bee population is declining, the population of mites is actually increasing. So partly because we have fewer mites or fewer bees. So if we have fewer bees in a colony and the mites are still developing, you end up having more mites per bee just because of the averages. So as a beekeeper, we need to make sure that our bee population stays above our mite population. And it's interesting, back when I first started keeping bees, we would treat in the fall and we thought we were done. We'd treat in the spring and the fall and thought we were done. Our bees would be tucked away for the winter by October. Our mite population actually peaks in September, October. So we can't treat, once in July or once in September and think our mite population is under control, because that mite population continues to increase. In addition to that, we have, as we talked earlier, the bees are going to rob from each other. So strong colonies are going to rob from weaker colonies, and weaker colonies probably have more Varroa mites. So the strong colonies are going to be coming to weaker colonies that are full of Varroa mite. Those mites are going to hitchhike on the back of the bee and go back to the strong colony. So they've done research and they found that even colonies that had low mites all season long, all of a sudden the mite population went way high in the fall. And come to find out, the mites were coming in through the front door of the hive, through the front entrance of the hive. So they were coming in on robbed bees, or robbing bees. So we have to keep an eye on that. And we certainly have tools to keep these mite levels low, which we'll talk about. But this is a key point that we all have to keep in mind. So this is these are dead colonies that were sampled. You can see in February. And this one here, so the colonies are dead, the bees are dead. This is February, and we still had, this one had 120 mites per 100 bees. And this one had 40 mites per 100 bees. So again, the tolerance level set by USDA is 3 mites per 100 bees. So even dead bees in February still had high levels of Varroa mite. And you wonder how in the world how in the world that happened. And I'm assuming that these bees were robbing weaker colonies. Even dead bees had high levels of Varroa Mite. So it's interesting to see how this works. So one thing that we start seeing even in August is PMS, which is parasitic mite syndrome. So the way that this was described to me is, so you have the Varroa mites that are chewing on the bees. Varroa mites have dirty mouths. They're crawling around within the hive. They're hitchhiking from plant to plant, flower to flower, and colony to colony. So they have dirty mouth parts. They have, bacteria and pathogens on their mouth parts. So as they go from one colony to another colony, and they start chewing on these bee larvae or bee pupa, these damaged bees now have secondary pathogens, bacteria, fungi, microbes that start to, get into the bee. So even besides the viruses that these mites can vector, there's all these other little microbes and things in the colony that can attack these bee larvae or bee pupa. So you're looking at a colony, you're trying to determine, what's going on. You see these white, gooey, melted bee larvae, bee pupa. It's not American foulbrood, it's not European foulbrood. Usually European foulbrood, they still have more or less of a larva shape to them. They're not flat. You start pulling these cells out or these dead pupa out, and you'll see the mites on them. You can pull out a dead bee. For instance, on this picture here, there's a dead bee. Her head is sticking out with her tongue sticking out. We pulled her out trying to determine why she died because, obviously she was completely developed, ready to come out. We pulled her out. She had no wings. Her body was tiny and undeveloped. She had a Varroa mites on her. So these mites they're chewing on the bee pupa. They're causing damage. There's secondary infections going on. Even if the viruses alone did not kill these pupa, these other pathogens did. So viruses can be present. They may or may not be expressed. You'll see deformed wings and you think, okay, my bees have deformed wing virus. There's like 19 different viruses that attack bees. And there could be several being expressed at one time or none of them. The bees could be sick just with PMS. So you think to yourself, okay, so I treated for mites. I shouldn't have this, right? Because I treated for mites. But it only takes one mite that is infective or one mite that has the virus to infect your colony. So we just have to be vigilant and keep an eye on our colony all season long. So this is based on the honeybee health survey that I've done for several years. And they're comparing Varroa Mite and the virus level in Ohio versus the United States average or national average. And you can see we're just about the same as everybody else. Our Varroa Mite population peaks in September and October. So we just have to keep that in mind. We pretty much have similar levels of viruses as the other states do. So I want to talk a little bit about how to do your monitoring, how to monitor for bees. There's basically 4 ways to monitor for mites. A lot of the county inspectors will do this. Basically, we pop off some of the capped brood, and check the drones for mites. This isn't very accurate. It just tells you whether you have mites or not. It doesn't really give you a level. The same thing with doing a mite drop. It just depends on how many frames of brood you have, how active the colony is. It shows a trend. It shows you that your colonies have mites. So in 24 hours, you shouldn't have more than 24 mites up on these boards. Now, Dwight Wells will tell you that you need to look at these under a scope to see if some of them have been chewed. So that's another good reason to, once in a while look at your bottom board to see if your bees have chewing behavior. But it just shows a trend. It doesn't show you what your level actually is. Better is the sugar roll and the alcohol wash. So both of these have a similar technique. You have a typical mason jar. You fill it about a quarter with powdered sugar for the sugar roll. You have a screen lid. You scoop about 300 bees in there. And you shake the bejeebers out of it. You let it sit for a couple minutes and you shake it again until those bees are just rolling with anger inside that jar. And you shake it over a white bowl and you count the number of mites that come out along with the sugar. And that's going to give you a count. And you don't want more than 3%, basically 3 mites per 100 bees. Problem with this is the fact, as the picture showed earlier, and John Cooper sent me this is a mite. It's kind of wedged itself underneath the segment of that bee's abdomen. Sugar rolls are not going to knock that mite loose. That mite is going to hang on for all it's worth. So you're going to get some mites that come out, but it's not going to give you an accurate number. But really the best is to use alcohol wash because although you're killing some bees, you are donating their bodies to science. It's better to kill about 300 bees once a month and know what your mite level is than to take a chance not to. Bees lay about, queen's going to lay about 2,000 eggs a day. So you lose about 1,000 or 2,000 bees a day just out of old age. So this is called the Easy Check that Vito Pharma makes. I'm not, supporting them, but these are so easy. They take a lot of the effort out of monitoring for bees. It works very easily. You scoop about 300 bees into here. There's different ways that you can do that. You can knock a frame into a tub and scoop them up, or you can knock them right off the frame as long as you make sure that you don't catch the queen. So you put your 300 bees in there, and you can see in this picture it has level, so it shows you 200 bees or 300 bees. You have some alcohol in here. Right now alcohol is hard to find, so you can put a little bit of windshield washer fluid in there. Mix that in along with a little bit of alcohol, and you shake it really hard. Shake it back and forth, up and down, so that you're dislodging those mites from the bees. So the bees die, the mites let go, and they'll fall down into this bottom area. At that point, you can see these mites very easily. So it's just easy. It's very easy to do this. You can reuse your alcohol, makes it easier. So there's a lot of different ways of controlling mites. I'm always asked, what I do or what I should do. I'm sure the county inspectors are asked that as well. Some people want to use chemicals, some people don't want to use chemicals. So I like to recommend the tools for Varroa Mite. This is written by researchers. It's updated every year. They have chemical, physical, and cultural ways of controlling the mite. It's easy to use. They actually break it down by season. So for instance, this is where the population is at the peak. It tells you what the best products are and what's moderately effective or less effective. In the back, they describe all the different ways of controlling mites and how they work and when they work. Lots of information. So it's just honeybeehealthcoalition.org. It's free to download. They also have an app you could put on your phone. It's pretty easy as well. It asks you what the season of the bees is. They ask if you want to use a chemical or not. Yeah, they just kind of walk you right through it. So this is very easy. And you can see all these this is the easy check, looking at the bottom, all the mites that are in there. So pretty easy tool to use. And I'm running out of time, but I think I'm about done. So for our healthiest bees, as Jamie said earlier, if you can keep your mite levels low all season, we don't have to use the harder chemicals. It's better for the bees as well as us. Try to keep your other pest levels as low. And feeding is underestimated. USDA has stated that each colony of bees needs 1 to 3 acres of flowering plants. So if you have 20 colonies and there's nothing around you but cornfields, there's probably not enough food. Or even in town, look around and see if there's enough food in the area to support your bees. So feed them if they need to be fed. Monitor your colonies at least once a month. Please work with us. We are not the bee police. We are here to teach and to help and have you have healthy bees. Read the journals. We have 2 great journals that you can get hold of. Talk to experienced beekeepers, and please be careful about what you find online. Anybody can post anything online. That doesn't mean that it works. It may work in Florida and it may not work here. So we all want to have healthy bees. And to switch gears just a little bit and talk about some of the other outreach stuff that we do, our inspectors as well as myself, we do a lot of outreach. We do give talks as we're doing now. We give field trips, which are kind of stuck this year with COVID. We deal with neighbor disputes and zoning issues. We tend to run into some angry bees from time to time, collect swarm calls. So, we do a lot of things other than just inspecting bees. And I wanted to show you, we have, so OSBA and ODA have pretty similar pest management practices. OSBA reflected ODAs in theirs, so that ours are consistent. So you can go to ODA's website and see our pest management practices, or even easier, you can go to OSBA's, and because they have the same pest management practices. Sorry. We've updated our website. If you haven't been on there lately, you can tab over on general information. You can get information about how many inspections we did last year. It's got links to other websites that are helpful. We have a direct link to the tools for Varroa Mite that you can download there. So we try to make this as helpful as possible. If you tab over to inspections, there's a list that shows where all the contact information for the bee inspectors, and we have last year's summary available there as well. And last but not least, because we've had so many calls on the Asian giant hornet, ODA has a reporting program now. We have links to fact sheets and confusing bees that look like them. If you are not sure what you're looking at, and we had some good ones this week. You can go on there, you can take some pictures and send us the pictures, and we can identify your hornet for you. So we'd rather have you sending us pictures and have us tell you, it's a southern hornet or whatever. We'd rather do that than have you possibly find something and not report it. So please let us know what you're seeing out there. But then, last but not least, because this is the time of year that we get dead bee calls, do a little bit of investigating. Again, if you check your colonies fairly often, if you see dead bees and you suspect it may be pesticide poisoning, please contact a pesticide division as soon as possible. But take some pictures and send it to them. We ask that you contact ODA as quickly as possible, but see if you can find out, what might have been sprayed around your area, how extensive the problem may be. you may want to check the bees and see, if are they just kicking out the drones, or is there, some other problem going on. But a lot of these chemicals break down pretty quickly in the sun and the rain. So if you find something that happened, 2 weeks ago, we're probably not going to be able to find anything find any residue. So this is our phone number. We have a toll-free one. You can email them and tell them what's going on, but contact them as soon as possible, because they're going to come out and collect bees. You may want to collect some for yourself and freeze them, but make sure that you leave plenty for them. And they'll probably try to take some from within the hive. That way they haven't broken down with the weather. We encourage you, especially if your bees are in the country, to sign up for a bee check. You can access that from our website. This is free. Basically, you put in your apiary address and however you want to be contacted, and it puts a pinpoint on your apiary. So this is the sensitive crop registry, the field watch. So most applicators have access to this. Beekeepers would not be able to see other beekeepers' names or addresses, but the applicators can, and they can see where these apiaries are. So very helpful for you. And just please, as a reminder, there's all kinds of things out there on the web, and I hear horror stories about what people do to their bees. For your protection and the bees, please follow the label requirements. And with that, I'm going to shut up. I've got my phone number and email here. We got some links. I also have some other links. This is links just for Varroa Mites. And Be Informed has all kinds of information on there. This is how beekeepers take these surveys, and they tell you, they report, how their bees survived the winter, how they survived the summer, what management they did, what products they used, did they wrap their hives, did they feed their hives, and how that worked out. They also have the hive scale information. They have their transfer tech information here. So lots of information. I have general bee information and pollinator website. So lots of stuff, and Amy's going to have this for you to look at your own leisure. With that, I'm going to stop and answer questions.
All right, Barb. Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody that participated. The owner, so I'm not sure who this is. It says, what journals do you recommend to read?
I like both of them. I have a hard time keeping up with everything in the summer. I like American Bee Journal and Bee Culture magazine. I also go to that PLOS one, PLOSONE. They have journal articles that you can read. And Google Scholar has all kinds of stuff. So it's not a journal, it's something that you would search. But American Bee Journal and Bee Culture both have great articles.
Okay. I have a question from Dwight. What does PMS stand for again?
Oh, I'm sorry, parasitic mite syndrome.
Okay. And he talks about the understanding, is it better to get nurse bees instead of foragers?
Yes,
if the nurse
thank
bees,
you.
Yep. If the nurse bees, does it work better to shake from the brood area into the bucket and then let it set for a couple of minutes to let the foragers fly out?
Yes, thank you. I was trying to stay on time. Ideally, you do want the nurse bees because they're the ones that have just emerged, and they're the ones that are most likely to have mites on them. So if you do the foragers, you know how many bees are robbing other colonies. But if you do the nurse bees, then you know how many mites are actually in your colonies. So the way I was taught to do it, if you're going to dump a frame into a tub, is obviously you look for the queen. If you don't see her, knock that frame in a tub and wait a minute. So one, yes, you're right, the foragers will fly out, but also the queen will be stuck in the middle, and the nurse bees tend to all crawl to the sides of the tub. So if the queen is in that tub, she kind of stays in the center, and I don't know why that is, but that I've seen that myself. So that will keep you from accidentally putting the queen in the tub, in the alcohol.
Okay, I have one other question. It says, thoughts on Randy Oliver's testing replacing alcohol with 2 tablespoons of Ultra Dawn Lemon Essential Dishwasher. He's getting 95 to 100% reliability. It's not published yet, as he is testing for seasonal variability.
And I don't know. Obviously, Dawn dishwashing liquid is going to kill the bees as well as the mites. I mean, it sounds like it would work, but right now, since alcohol is hard to find, you might want to try it. But since it hasn't been, I would want to wait to see if other research is done on it. But it sounds like at least it would get us through this alcohol shortage.
For those asking where this is going to be located, I put a link on the YouTube channel. Tonight, this recording will be edited and added to with the beginning and introduction, and it'll be posted next Sunday on the YouTube channel.